In this bulletin, religious leaders go public on racism. A pastor abducted in eastern Ukraine. And Hillsong cleans up at the Dove Awards.
This is InFocus Christian News and Current Affairs.
Hello, it's great to have your company this week. I'm Dannielle Synot, and it's also great to welcome back my tanned and relaxed co-host from his holidays, Kent Kingston.
Tanned and relaxed, Dannielle? Well, maybe a little bit tanned, but relaxed. I was busy. I was building stuff and scrubbing walls and entertaining children in the tropical heat. But look, it is good to be back. What's happening on InFocus this week? Politics, is that right?
Well, you should know, Kent, you're the producer. If you don't know, we really are in trouble. But yes, politics with Lyle Shelton, and I'll also be chatting with Doc about the vegetarian diet.
Okay, well, funny, I thought that was Sue's area, but look, it will be interesting to get Doc Wright's perspective.
Absolutely. And of course, Kent, you've got an interview with Ash Barker.
Oh, yeah. You know, I have been looking forward to meeting this guy for ages. For the past 12 years, Ash has lived in one of Bangkok's poorest slums in a slum house with his wife and 2 kids, showing the love of Jesus to his neighbours. Wow. I really want to know, Dannielle, what makes this guy tick?
Yeah, I'm sure you do, Kent. It sounds absolutely incredible.
Oh, you're not kidding. News?
Thanks, Kent. The leaders of the 20 most powerful countries in the world will be meeting in Brisbane next month, and Christians are preparing to make an impact on the event. The Business Blessings network of Christian business owners in Brisbane is calling for prayer in the lead-up to the G20 Leaders Summit. Business Blessings says decisions made at the summit will impact everyday issues such as jobs, property prices and economic growth. Christian campaign organisation Micah Challenge is also gearing up for the G20 meetings. They're advocating for world leaders to reorganise their tax systems to make sure multinational companies pay their fair share of tax, money that can be used to benefit the world's poor. Christian representatives were among religious leaders who gathered in front of Parliament House in Canberra to express their concern about racism and discrimination in Australia. According to the ABC, the faith leaders are worried about the government's new anti-terrorism legislation and moves to segregate visitors to Parliament House who have their faces covered. The religious leaders say the tone of the recent political discussion over Islam has become negative and divisive. They're calling for Australia to stand firm in preserving its democratic values, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and a fair and inclusive culture. Participating in the gathering were Buddhists, Hindus and Sikhs, as well as leaders representing Muslim organisations, the Uniting Church and interfaith groups. Kiwi Christian leaders are also calling on their government to take a more compassionate approach, this time to refugees. Apram Pithu, a priest with New Zealand's Syrian Christian community, says New Zealand should increase its intake of Syrian refugees fleeing violence from the so-called Islamic State rebel group. According to the New Zealand Herald, Father Pithu says he supports the current military intervention by America and others, but is keen for humanitarian issues to be more of a priority. New Zealand Prime Minister John Key said he'd make a decision about increasing support to the troubled region next month. In another of the world's trouble spots, eastern Ukraine, an Adventist pastor was abducted at gunpoint during a church service in what appears to be a religiously motivated attack. According to the Adventist Review, Pastor Sergei Litovchenko was serving communion when the unidentified men entered the church and demanded he accompany them. The men said the region was an Orthodox land and that there was no room for other Christian groups. In the recent past, pro-Russian separatists have detained members of other Protestant churches, but have always released them fairly quickly. Pastor Litovchenko's whereabouts are still unknown. In their traditional heartlands in Western countries, many Anglican congregations are struggling to make headway. But in Ethiopia, the effect of war and displacement has been to grow the church. According to Anglican News, more than 500,000 people have fled South Sudan's ongoing conflict. Many of these refugees have ended up in Ethiopia, which is now the country hosting the largest number of refugees in Africa. But along with their stories of suffering, the South Sudanese have also brought their faith and have planted dozens of churches in and around refugee camps. Some congregations have brought members of rival tribes together for worship to make the point that not even war can divide the body of Christ. The robust debate over women's ordination is continuing in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, with a number of theologians and pastors publicly releasing an 8-page document. The paper upholds the doctrine of headship, including male headship in the home and church. The document seeks to biblically refute, point by point, a statement recently released by the Theological Faculty of Andrews University in Michigan, USA, that pointed to Christ as the only head of the church. World church leaders are currently gathered for their annual council in the United States to discuss the issue and prepare an agenda for the General Conference Worldwide Constituency meeting to be held in July 2015. There's no doubt that organising international church conferences is an expensive business, and observers sometimes question whether such events are a responsible use of finances. The obvious solution is to link the conference delegates online, something that is becoming increasingly possible as internet availability and quality improves. But how much cheaper is this option really? About $1 million cheaper, according to a recent experience of the Adventist Church's world headquarters in Maryland, USA. They recently organised an online stewardship conference involving about 10,000 people from 83 countries. Cost around $20,000 US. Organisers say a face-to-face conference, including air travel, accommodation, meals and a large conference centre, would have cost more than $1.1 million. As was widely predicted, Australia's Hillsong United left this year's Gospel Music Dove Awards victorious with an armful of trophies. Hillsong United was voted Artist of the Year and their song Oceans was named Song of the Year, just 2 of the 5 Dove Awards they took home from Nashville, Tennessee.
We started as just a bunch of rat bags in our youth ministry trying to write music and have fun, and we're just grateful for our pastors and leaders to kind of, shepherd us and encourage us to just do what we, do to glorify God, and that's been our heart. We just want to help people, and so we feel like we're just holding on for the ride. We never thought that, 10 plus years in that we'd be here at the Doves and get to be what we're a part of. We're just so grateful.
According to Baptist Press, Switchfoot, Skillet, Chris Tomlin and Ali Holcomb were also awarded. And Mercy Me was recognised for the success of their 1999 song, I Can Only Imagine, the first gospel song to reach the 2 million digital downloads mark.
Will I stand in your presence, or to my knees, or will I fall? Will I sing hallelujah? Will I be able to speak at all? I can only imagine, yeah.
After the startling success of evangelistic meetings in Vanuatu, where more than 2,000 people were baptised, the new converts are already seeing changes in their lives. For example, 134 couples were married in just one day. Many of the couples had already been living together before making their new commitment to Jesus, and they wanted to make their relationships right before God. 13 Adventist churches in the town of Efate helped to organise and host the weddings in an expression of support for the couples, many who would not have been able to afford to get married otherwise. And that's this week's news. What do you reckon, Kent? Do you reckon weddings would come cheaper by the dozen if we bought them in bulk?
Buy in bulk, absolutely, yeah. Very efficient. Be a great way just to move them through, bam, bam, bam. That's a great idea.
Oh, come on, Kingston. You're a big softy at heart. Come on, look at me in the eye and tell me, have you ever cried at a wedding?
Look, we need to go to a break now.
Yeah.
We've got plenty more to pack in, Dannielle. Politics in Focus is coming up after the break.
You wuss.
Thousands of years ago, a series of ancient prophecies were disguised within a system of mysterious symbols. For centuries, these remarkable predictions have been sealed to the world until now. Check out our new Secrets of Prophecy online course today in 24 beautifully illustrated free studies at www.itiswrittenoceania.tv or call 1300 300 389 for your free copy today.
Hello, and now joining us from Canberra is Martin Isles. Welcome to In Focus for your debut appearance, Martin.
Thanks so much, Kent. Yeah, our usual front man's away taking care of some business today, but happy to fill in for him.
Okay. Now, Martin, it seems freedom of expression issues are on the agenda again in the Australian political landscape. We heard in the news earlier that some religious leaders are concerned about the impact of the federal government's anti-terror legislation. There's talk of banning the burqa, but at the same time, Senator Bob Day is trying to expand free speech by reforming the Racial Discrimination Act so that it's no longer illegal to cause offence. Is there a clear pattern to what's going on here?
Well, I think, Kent, the short answer is that there's a tension to what's going on here. It's long been a fundamental principle of Western countries and democracies like Australia, and one that's made us very successful, that we don't make it illegal to speak. And that's been foundational, and Bob Day is trying to draw attention to that. And he's especially saying that if people can respond to the things you say that they don't like by suing you and all the nasties that go with that, then we're just not going to debate certain issues. And if there's one thing that's essential to a functioning democracy, it is a red-hot, healthy debate. So we need to be able to talk about stuff. And so when it comes to these issues of banning things and banning the way people express themselves and banning speech, it's very serious, and we do need to stop and take a look and be very careful. It's a matter of buyer beware.
Do you think, Martin, that the freedom of speech issues are connected with freedom of religion? Is there a clear connection there?
Oh yes, absolutely, Kent. I mean, underneath both of the values of freedom of religion and freedom of speech are actually the value of freedom of conscience. And a free conscience is the very definition of a free society. And so your faith is part of your conscience, the way you're compelled to speak is part of your conscience, so they're vitally important.
Okay. Now, on to another topic, Martin. The Australian Education Curriculum Review was released just recently, and one of the key recommendations there was to teach Australia's Judeo-Christian heritage more thoroughly. I understand you and your organisation campaigned on this. Are you happy with the result?
Well, yes, I think, Ken, we can say so far so good. We're very happy because we did put in a submission to the effect that Australia's Judeo-Christian heritage and history could be more effectively and honestly taught, and it seems that the review panel agree with us, and they've recommended that change. Okay.
Some people, of course, Martin, have made fairly strong statements that a government school is not the place for religion, not the place for Christian indoctrination in particular. Do they have a point?
Well, no, I don't think they do, Kent, to be honest, because that's not what's going on here. What the government has said they're doing is paring back some of the more peripheral and extraneous subject areas that perhaps parents are better placed to teach, and going back to the basics and the foundational areas of knowledge of education, and they are maths, science, English and history. And you know, it's very hard to teach our history without teaching it as it was and as it happened. Bill Shorten recently said that we should teach our history as it was, and that in large part is our Judeo-Christian history. So this has recognition in political circles and right across the spectrum. And so that is why it has a legitimate place in education, and it's difficult to say that this is indoctrination when you're just presenting the facts as they were.
Food for thought. Okay, thanks for your time today, Martin.
Thank you, Kent.
And now it's over to Dannielle and Health in Focus.
Thanks, Kent. Well, if you like a good steak, we might have a bit of bad news for you. Doc.
Oh, shock horror.
Shock horror. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm just thinking that poor cow in there I'm not going to kill. Hi there, everybody. Nice being with you yet once more. And I hope you enjoy the program today, because we're talking about vegetarian lifestyle improves health, essentially by bringing the blood pressure down. Now, there are tens of millions of people out there wandering around with elevated blood pressure. That means anything over 135, over 90, that's the accepted norm. Anything over that, and they run a greatly increased risk of having a stroke. And that is not very nice. Also that can lead to all sorts of other horrible things, but also increased risk of heart disease, diabetes and all these nasty things. But blood pressure is not very nice. people, you hear of people dropping dead, don't you?
Yeah, yeah,
They've
you
got
do.
unknown blood pressure, might be 250 all their life, didn't know it, never been to the doctor to have it checked.
So what's
And
the correlation
bang.
between that, Doc,
Well,
and
I don't
reducing
know.
your blood pressure?
I don't know
and
how they found out, but they did. And I got picked up my story from the Harvard Health Letter, which picked up their story from the JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association, which all the American doctors get, another source of information. And they've just discovered that after decades of talking and medicating people with high blood pressure, they've now found, OK, just change your lifestyle a bit and have more vegetables.
Yeah.
Forget the dead cow, forget the dead pig, forget sausages, forget that. Our good old simple home-grown, backyard-grown vegetables, good old pumpkin, and also the pumpkin seeds are good for you too. So that's my tea for tonight. How's that sound?
That looks pretty good.
Isn't it?
I'll tell you
that'll
what.
last me 2 nights.
And of course, there's no cholesterol in that.
No,
so
absolutely
that's
none.
not gonna...
So there's no cholesterol to start with, but also, more importantly, it's going to keep my blood pressure down. Now, it's amazing it's taken all these years to discover this, because how many million people have their blood pressure taken every, go to the doctor and probably have their blood pressure taken, and the relationship has just been discovered after all these jolly years.
Yeah.
Little simple tip, costs nothing, and eating vegetables is much cheaper, money-wise, than eating meat and so forth. So for what it's worth, I'm not a fanatic on what you. I don't care what people eat, but I know what I eat, and I've been a vegetarian all my life, and my blood pressure is 120, which is pretty good.
That's it.
For a young person.
That's it. You've had a good innings too,
Yeah,
Doc.
absolutely.
Fantastic. So there you go, guys. Eat your veggies, keep your blood pressure down, and have a good life.
Love
Sounds
you
pretty
all.
good.
See you next time.
Stay with us. We'll be right back after the break.
Planning your future can be a daunting task. What you want to do, who you want to be, and the road ahead can often be unpredictable. No one really knows what the future holds. Avondale. It's education designed for life.
Hi, welcome back. Well, it's a real privilege for me to have in the studio someone who I've looked up to for quite a while, admired from afar, as it were, and that is Ash Barker. Thanks for being here, Ash.
Great to be here, Kent. Thank you.
And the reason why I admire you, Ash, is that for the past 12 years, you and your family went to Bangkok, to one of the toughest slums there, and lived there as, I guess, urban missionaries or embedded missionaries, not in a mission compound somewhere else, but right there among the people.
Sure.
What drove you to do that?
The short answer is a sense of call, that after what Jesus has done for us, we want to go and follow and join and participate what's on God's heart. And 1 in 6 people live in slums. And as doors opened up for us after years of experience in Melbourne of working among urban poverty in a different setting, we had the opportunity to go. And it is pretty crazy. I mean, it's 100,000 people in a square kilometre. We lived right in the middle of it with my family. I have 2 kids now, and my wife. And my son Aiden was actually born there.
Wow.
And so, yeah, it was challenging. But there's a joy that comes with doing the things that really matter and get a sense of meaning and purpose that I don't think you get unless you risk yourself in these kinds of ways. And we had the joy of doing that.
So can you paint a picture for me, please, Ash? I just came back from a 1.5 week mission trip to the Solomon Islands, okay? Sure. We were crammed in a little house together, about 17 of us. It was cold showers. My wife had to leave her hairdryer behind. That was pretty tough for us. You've been living in a slum for 12 years. A similar picture, or?
We did have electricity. It was illegal. They'd siphoned it off the mains, so it wasn't always working. I think the open sewers were the hardest things. And when floods come, you would literally kind of open up. And it was really hot. I mean, you just have these living conditions that are just humid and you get sick. So I had dengue fever 4 times in the first 6 months, dysentery, typhoid, typhus. You kind of get the list of them, and then your body kind of adapts to it. My body got a reboot almost, really.
Yeah. It's a scary place to take kids, though, isn't it? Because young children often don't have that sort of immunity.
Yeah, although they often can adapt far quicker than adults do.
Okay.
And that was the case with our kids, whose health was really good most of the time. Yeah, and they've had an amazing experience. I mean, it is one of the questions you always get, how did your kids cope? And actually, they, as children, they loved it. There were so many kids to play with all the time. It takes a village to raise a child. We had a brilliant village who everyone was kind of looking out for our kids.
Well, including what? Brothel madams and organised crime and all sorts of dodgy people. Are they really the sort of people you want your kids to be around?
Well, there are good people at every community, and it takes a while to find them. Yeah. But because we were seen as doing something good with the community centre we were based at and the social enterprises that got emerged, we got to know who was who, and that was important. And there were kind of people of peace who kind of receive you and you trust them. One of the people that we got to meet her name was Pooh. P-O-O, that was her name. And she
Unfortunate.
And she was a great cook, and we'd love Pooh food. She'd make this food out the front of her house. But actually the price of rice suddenly went through the roof. And what Pooh was doing very cheap food that everyone could afford, but she couldn't afford to put the prices up. And so she was in quite a lot of desperation. So Ange worked with her, and they started a cooking school. And it became the #1 thing to do on TripAdvisor within 6 months. Wow. And a book got emerged. We got a photographer that came over and took these brilliant photographs of her food, but also stories in the community. And Cooking with Pooh was launched. And actually, someone put it, we still don't know who this person was, put it in the Frankfurt Book Fair. And it won an award, the biggest book fair in the world, for the oddest book title of the year. But for me, the hope in that story and the joy of that is that our families were incredibly tight. And the joy that Pooh has in helping others, and mostly that's what she's done. She's helped start Helping Hands, kind of foundation to help other people start small businesses, and has been incredibly generous with what she's done.
So Ash, traditionally a missionary has this sort of mission model where you go overseas, you establish maybe a mission school, maybe a mission clinic or hospital, and that's sort of a little compound that you base your mission efforts out of. I get the sense you're much more embedded in the community and a part of it. You're not calling people out of the village to come to your compound.
Yeah, look, in a place like a slum where you've got so many people crammed together, you just can't do a compound. There's just no room for it.
Sure.
Number two, by working in really informal ways with people, starting small businesses, living among the community, so you get to know who people are and who you can trust and who you can't. Even faith becomes a bit more day-to-day rather than a thing you do just on a Sunday. It becomes a lifestyle because we need Jesus to come in these situations, the things that we're all facing. So I think sharing your life with people is much better than trying to get people to come to your compound. And certainly I feel like Jesus goes before us, that he invites us in and we join and participate and we follow this living Jesus who's there. And so it's really hard to do that if you build lots of barriers and walls around yourself.
So does it work though? I mean, can you give me a list of statistics of baptisms or churches you planted while you were there?
Look, there weren't churches planted, and there was only one church when we started, and there were 5 churches when we finished up our time. There were 17 different entities run by Thai people when we left only a few months ago. And there were lots of baptisms, but you don't. For me, I don't measure it by that. They're all good things. The thing for me is, and it's Jesus' prayer, how can God's will be done on earth as it is in heaven? Are we seeing change in this community? Is it becoming more like God's will being done here as it is in heaven? They're more the things you're after than if you can put notches on your belt. And if you come with that colonial style conquest kind of impulse, people will reject you. You will need a compound. But if you come saying God's already at work, how can we join with that? No one's far away from God.
Ash, I think of the rich young ruler. Jesus offered him the opportunity to give everything he owned to the poor and come and follow me, and we're told the rich young ruler went away sad. Okay, Jesus might not ask all of us to give away all our possessions and give to the poor and follow me, but he might ask some of us, and he's asked a pretty tough thing of you. For some of our viewers, watching this, what tips could you give them from a spiritual point of view of if God does put this huge, seemingly unrealistic, impossible hurdle in front of you, a task in front of you, how do you take that on? How do you not go away sad?
Yeah, that's and that text is such a challenging text for me because no matter how much we give away, and we've given away everything we have and moved twice to do the things we're called to do, but God gives you grace to do it. And I think there is a sense where we have to surrender it. Christian faith is not about how can we get things from God. Christian faith is about surrendering all to God so God can do through us what God wants done in the world. And so that does mean holding loosely the material things around us that will not last. I mean, houses, cars, boats, those things will be gone one day. But the things we do in faith and hope and love, those things remain. And so it's not worth it, I think, to, for the destiny that God has for each of us to be so held captive by those things. I'm not saying that's easy. I'm not saying in a materialistic world these things are not challenges, but they're doable and they're possible.
And they're living proof, I guess.
And it's fun. I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's a joy to be able to get to do what we do.
Wow.
It's not, and after what Jesus has done for us, the sacrifices he has done, anything that we do in return is nothing.
True, true. Wow, that's really sobering for me, despite your joy. Now, if you want to know more about Ash Barker and Urban Neighbours of Hope, which is the organisation he heads up, their website is unoh.org. Did I get that right?
Yes, although I've just resigned from Urban Neighbours of Hope.
Okay.
I'm about to move to the UK.
Oh, you're moving to the UK, but Urban Neighbours of Hope is the organisation you've been with.
Yep.
So, look, it's a fascinating organisation. Check it out. Are there details about this book on there, Ash?
There are, and urbanlifetogether.org has all our latest details in our transition.
So Urban Life Together, there's another website for you. Hope you got your pen and paper there. And Risky Compassion tells your story of being in Bangkok.
In the last 12 years, looking at through the lens of the Good Samaritan story.
Well, so check it out. Thanks so much for your time, Ash. Really appreciate it. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me here. It's a pleasure.
We'll be back straight after the break.
Signs of the Times, a magazine for a world on the brink. And this month in Signs, what is the meaning of the Christian practice of tithing? The invisible influence of fathers on their children. Anne Thorpe, the Maori Queen of Cuisine, on fresh, healthful food. The importance of sunshine on your health. All in this month's Signs of the Times. Subscribe to Signs today and change your life.
Welcome back. So what do you reckon, Dannielle? Can you see yourself living in a Bangkok slum for 12 years with your spouse and kids? What do you reckon?
Oh, well, I reckon, if God calls you to do something, you do anything, Kent. But, not off the top of my head. But, all power to Ash, I reckon. Good on him.
Yeah,
amazing.
I've found his story incredibly inspiring, incredibly challenging, really. Would I have the faith to follow through if God asked me to do something like that? Yeah. Would you?
Well, he's heading for the UK now, but hardly a cushy transition, is it? Heading off to Birmingham, I think,
Yeah,
isn't
that's
it?
right. Birmingham, it's a pretty tough area with a pretty tough reputation, apparently.
Yeah, absolutely incredible, I think. Well, we need to finish up now. Thanks for watching. Every segment of today's program is, of course, available on our website.
And, Dannielle, there's even an app.
An app.
If you want to keep up with InFocus on your phone or tablet, it's all there, Apple or Android.
That's right, just about an app for everything, Kent.
That's right.
Just search the App Store or the Play Store. It's for Adventist Record and it's free.
Great. Well, that's all from us. We'll see you next time on Record InFocus.
Until then, God bless.
See ya.